Thank you so much. In 1994, 3 high school juniors from the farming communities of Central Ohio sat getting ready to enter a boardroom filled with executives from Japan. On the left sat the class valedictorian. She had a 4.0 GPA, was funny, was well-versed on world affairs. On the right sat the class president. She was smart, outgoing, great conversationalist, and incredibly popular. In the middle was an awkward, quiet, 16-year-old boy with a 2.6 GPA, barely passed Spanish 2 last semester, and felt really out of place. All 3 were about to interview for an all-expense paid exchange program to travel to Japan for 2 weeks. Incredibly, this awkward 16-year-old kid somehow impressed the board enough to select me for that trip. I went from the isolation of rural Ohio to Tokyo, one of the most densely populated cities on the planet, where at times I was literally shoved onto a packed subway train, and I loved it. The sights of the enormous skyscrapers, the popping of my ears as the bullet trains whistled through the tunnels, the tranquility of the temples, even the chill of being up on Mount Fuji. Every day was an incredible new experience. But meeting the people is really what impacted me. Everyone was so warm and welcoming. I was constantly offered gifts and given tours of shops and apartments and schools. They were so proud and so excited to show off their culture, and I couldn't get enough. Then it hit me. The world is full of these experiences, and I wanted more. Eventually, I ended up teaching at Lincoln High School in Tacoma, Washington. In my 3rd year of teaching, I, just like thousands of other teachers around the world, received a postcard telling me how amazing of a teacher I would be if only I would take students on an international trip. I laughed as I looked at it and started to throw it away, but then I remembered. I remembered being that kid in the boardroom who thought there was no way they would pick me. That boardroom where I received my opportunity. And I began to wonder, I wonder if I could offer that same experience to my students. My school has a storied past. Over 100 graduating classes have come through our halls. We are located on the east side of Tacoma, which is a diverse and traditionally underserved part of town. 80% of our students receive free or reduced lunch. 80%. 75% are students of color. More than 50 different languages are spoken by our students and parents. I teach biology, environmental science, and horticulture in what is called Career and Technical Education, or CTE. As it happens with my horticulture classes, we teach students how to grow plants, and then we sell them at our annual plant sale we host in the spring. But this is not just a cute little table set up by a couple of kids. Our gross revenue frequently tops more than $25,000 a year, and we do it in 5 days. In the poorest part of the city. I began to put plans into place to be able to use some of that money to help fund student trips. It took a lot of work, but in 2012, I was finally able to take my first group of students to Costa Rica. Since then, I've taken students to Europe. We've gone back to Costa Rica, most recently, Dominican Republic. In 2016, we were able to take 100 students to China following a visit by Chinese President Xi Jinping. He invited us. Each trip I take, I'm usually asked, why do you do this? They often expect my answer to be that I want our students to have better opportunities in college, or get better jobs, or some think that maybe I just want a free trip. That might have been a little bit of true in the beginning. But I want far more than that. You see, I want our students to be globally minded, globally aware, globally competent. The rapid pace in which the world has gotten smaller has meant that our students' ignorance of the world can no longer hide behind the curtain of American dominance and power. Our students now have to compete globally for higher wage jobs. They have to learn how to work with people from different cultures. Issues such as environmental protection, disease control, food scarcity, and conflict resolution all depend on people across cultures working together to find solutions. Traveling can help students in so many ways to become more globally competent. It's a tangible action that they can take to make learning authentic and understand issues outside of their norm. But giving students the opportunity to travel is far more complicated and challenging than it appears. The first challenge is obvious. Many students just can't afford it. With parents working multiple jobs just to keep the apartment's lights on and the kids fed, $3,000 might as well be $1 million. There are so many talented students that I see every day that deserve these opportunities. They're incredibly intelligent, outgoing, have amazing leadership potential. Why should their opportunities be limited just because their family doesn't have a lot of money, wealth? Travel can't just be for those who have money. It's just far too important. The second challenge is fear. Many students don't have a history of traveling. On our trip to China, all of our expenses were paid for by the Chinese government. Yet students that were academically eligible didn't even apply. They were scared. Their parents were scared. Sensationalized media and no family history of travel makes them expect the worst. Plane crashes, terrorists, kidnappings are all things that they list as their top concerns. I swear, the movie Taken was the worst thing that happened to student travel since 9/11. At the district level, administrators and legal teams are becoming increasingly resistant to student travel too. They're fearful. Their concerns over litigation are over-trumping student learning opportunities when it comes to planning trips. Threats of lawsuits come from every angle within a school district, and legal teams are simply deciding the risk is not worth it. Be patient with school district administrators and understand where they're coming from as you're working with your clients. But if students have the opportunity to become globally competent, doors will open up for them. It will open up all around the world. They will grow in their confidence, expand their leadership skills, and maybe even find a new career in travel. All things that can take them out of poverty and change their lives forever. I'm incredibly honored and humbled in receiving this award. As you can see, there are many teachers around the country, and so many people work in so many areas that work diligently and endlessly towards providing student travel opportunities. I have to thank my principal, Mr. Irwin, who has supported me in these crazy ideas of mine, and the other administrators who've worked behind the scenes to make these trips work. And I want to thank the students and the parents who have trusted me with their lives. That's no small thing. Most importantly, I have to thank my wife, whose love of travel matches my own, which she reminds me of every time I go somewhere without her. And of course, I want to thank all of you. Without you, these trips just can't happen. Please keep it up. Because you just never know who will be that awkward 16-year-old kid who needs some kind of experience to someday make a difference. Thank you.